A monstrous roar shatters the quiet of the ancient plains. This is the sound of the Nemean Lion, a beast whose golden hide turned aside every weapon, a creature of myth that brought an entire region to its knees. But this was no ordinary monster. It was the legendary sibling of the Chimera, born from the same terrifying lineage that spawned the greatest horrors of the ancient world. By the end of this journey, you will understand the epic saga of this invulnerable lion. From its monstrous origins to its final, fateful confrontation with the hero Hercules. We will uncover how its very hide defied logic, and why this first labor set the stage for the greatest hero of all. What does it truly mean to face a challenge that cannot be pierced, only overcome? That roar echoing across the plains was a family trait. To understand the Nemean lion's terrifying power, we must look to its parents, the source of all its monstrous might. This lion was not born from ordinary animals. Its father was Typhon, a storm giant so immense as his head brushed the stars, a being of pure, earth-shaking chaos. Its mother was Echidna, the mother of all monsters, a creature who was half beautiful woman and half terrifying serpent. Together, they were the primordial parents of nearly every major monster in Greek mythology. Their children were not mere animals, but living embodiments of the world's most destructive forces. This makes the Nemean lion a direct sibling to some of the most infamous creatures in legend. Its brothers and sisters include the Chimera, that fire-breathing hybrid of lion, goat, and serpent. They include Cerberus, the three-headed hound guarding the gates of the underworld. They include the riddling sphinx that terrorized Thebes, and the many-headed Hydra that grew two heads for everyone cut off. This is a family of pure, concentrated challenge. Symbolically, this lineage represents everything the ancient Greeks saw as chaotic and untamed in the natural world. These were not just predators. They were obstacles that defied the natural order itself. They were forces of raw destruction that heroes were destined to face and, in facing them, bring a semblance of order to a wild world. The Nemean lion, with its impenetrable hide, was the family's first and most fundamental challenge, a brute force test of invulnerability sent into the world. Its golden hide was not just for show, it was a declaration of impossibility. The Nemean lion's most famous feature was a pelt of shimmering sun-bright fur, a coat so magnificent it seemed spun from light itself. But this beauty was a deadly trap. That golden hide was said to be tougher than any metal forged by human hands. Spears tipped with bronze would shatter against it. Arrows fletched with eagle feathers would snap and fall away. Swords of the finest iron would simply glance off, leaving not even a scratch. No weapon of stone, wood, or mortal metal could pierce it. This was not merely thick skin. It was a form of absolute, magical defense. The mythological logic here is deeply tied to its terrifying lineage. Born from Typhon and Echidna, this lion was a creature of primordial essence, a piece of the ancient chaos given animal form. Its invulnerability was a birthright, a divine attribute passed down from its father, the storm giant who challenged the gods themselves. Its hide was not of this world, and therefore the weapons of this world were useless against it. This sets it completely apart from any real lion. A real lion, for all its power, is a mortal creature of flesh and bone. It can be wounded, it can be hunted, it can fall to a well-placed spear. The Nemean lion operated on a different set of rules entirely. It turned the fundamental relationship between hunter and prey on its head. You could not outfight it in any conventional way. Facing it was not a test of strength or courage alone, but a profound puzzle of how to defeat the undefeatable. This golden, impervious beast was less an animal and more a walking fortress, a living embodiment of an unstoppable force. Nemea was a land gripped by silent dread. This once fertile region in the northeastern Peloponnese, known for its groves and gentle hills, had become a place of shadows. The people lived in a state of constant, low-grade terror, for the Nemean lion did not merely hunt, it ruled. Its chosen lair was a cave with 2 gaping mouths, a clever and terrifying feature that made any thought of trapping the beast seem foolish. If hunters dared to block one entrance, the lion would simply slip out the other, emerging behind them with a predator's calm fury. From this fortress, the lion's reign of hunger spread across the countryside. It devoured flocks whole, leaving shepherds with empty pens and broken livelihoods. It stalked travelers on the lonely mountain paths, cutting off the vital trade routes that were the lifeblood of the community. The roads grew quiet, then empty. Fields closest to the hills went untended. The very social fabric of Nemea began to unravel as people retreated behind barred doors, afraid to venture out even by day. This was more than a predator problem. It was a siege. The lion, with its impossible hide, was an occupying force of nature that no human army could dislodge. Despair settled over the land as thickly as a winter fog. The people felt abandoned, their prayers to the gods seeming to fall on deaf ears. They were living in a cage of their own homeland with a golden, unkillable jailer. It was into this atmosphere of shattered hope that a new figure would finally walk, a man sent not as a savior by the people's prayers, but as a punishment for his own terrible crime. The stage for the first labor was not just a location. It was the emotional wasteland, perfectly set for a hero's ultimate test. The despair of Nemea finally reached the ears of a king, but not one who cared for its people. King Eurystheus of Tiryns was a small man in every sense, a ruler known more for his fear and pettiness than any heroic virtue, and he held the life of a far greater man in his hands. That man was Hercules, a hero of immense strength and tragic fate. In a fit of madness sent by the goddess Hera, who hated him for being the son of her husband Zeus, Hercules had committed an unspeakable act, killing his own wife and children. When the fog of madness lifted, he was left with a horror no man could bear. Seeking purification, he went to the oracle of Delphi, who delivered his sentence. To atone for his crime, he must enter the service of King Eurystheus for 12 years and perform any 10 labors the king demanded. Eurystheus, terrified of his powerful cousin, saw not a path to redemption, but an opportunity for elimination. His very first command was a death sentence disguised as a task. Go to Nemea, subdue the beast whose hide turns all weapons. Bring me its skin. The cruelty of the order was layered. It sent a grieving, penitent man into a land already defined by hopelessness. It demanded he succeed where every other hunter had met only broken weapons and a swift end. For Eurystheus, it was a perfect, clean solution. Either the lion would kill Hercules, removing a personal threat, or the hero would die trying, proving his weakness. The impossible task was not just a test of might, it was a trap of psychological torment, forcing Hercules to confront an external manifestation of the invulnerable guilt he carried within. Hercules walked into the trap with his eyes wide open. He arrived in the blighted land of Nemea, not with a triumphant shout, but with the quiet focus of a hunter. The first thing he did was not to seek out the lion, but to seek out the people who lived in its shadow. He listened to the hushed, fearful accounts of shepherds who had seen their flocks vanish. He studied the deep, singular tracks leading to the twin-mouthed cave. He absorbed the complete and utter failure of every prior attempt, learning the hard truth that bronze and iron were worthless here. This was not a monster you could ambush or outmaneuver in a traditional hunt. Its golden hide made a mockery of the entire concept of a weapon. In that moment of understanding, Hercules demonstrated the core of true heroism, adaptability. He realized that to defeat a problem that could not be pierced, he would need to stop trying to pierce it at all. The solution required a fundamental shift in thinking. Walking through a grove of wild olive trees, ancient and gnarled, he found his answer. With his immense strength, he tore an entire tree from the earth, roots and all. He then methodically stripped it of its branches and roots, fashioning the massive, solid trunk into a club of unimaginable weight. This was not a blade. It had no sharp edge, no piercing point. It was a weapon of pure, concussive force. A club does not need to break the skin to break bones. It does not need to pierce a magical hide to deliver the shock of a mountain's weight behind it. In crafting this primitive tool, Hercules showcased a brilliant tactical mind. He was moving the conflict from the lion's terms, a contest of invulnerability, to his own terms, a contest of overwhelming impact. The hero was preparing to bludgeon a puzzle into submission. The moment of truth arrived with a low, rumbling growl that vibrated through the very ground. Hercules waited near the twin-mouthed cave, his massive olive wood club held ready, his breath still. The Nemean Lion emerged not with a frantic charge, but with the slow, deliberate confidence of a king surveying its domain. It was even more magnificent and terrifying up close, a mountain of muscle draped in that deceptive golden fur. Hercules did not hesitate. As the beast turned its head, the hero sprang from his hiding place, putting his entire body into a swing that would have crushed a boulder into dust. The club connected with the lion's skull with a sickening, thunderous crack. The sound was not of breaking bone, but of immense, solid wood meeting an immovable object. The lion staggered, shaking its massive head with a dazed roar. It was stunned, momentarily confused by the sheer force of the impact. But it did not fall. Not a single drop of blood was drawn. The club had failed to break the magical hide, proving its invulnerability extended even to concussive force. Hercules, realizing his primary weapon was useless, fell back. He reached for his bow, firing arrow after arrow with the precision that made him famous. Each shot was true, each arrowhead aimed for a vulnerable eye or an open mouth. Yet they did not strike flesh. They struck that golden pelt and simply bounced. They clattered to the rocky ground like harmless twigs, their bronze tips bent and dulled. In that moment, standing before the now recovering and enraged beast, Hercules faced the core of the challenge. This was not a fight he could win through strength or skill with weapons. The lion's hide was a perfect defense. To win, he would have to find a way to defeat the beast without ever piercing its skin, a puzzle that demanded a completely new kind of violence. The failed assault left Hercules with a single, vital piece of information. The lion could be hurt. That staggering, dazed reaction to the club proved the creature could feel force, even if its skin could not be cut. It was a living, breathing animal inside that magical armor, and it needed to eat, sleep, and retreat. Hercules, the hunter, now followed the beast's tracks, not to ambush it in the open, but to understand its habits. The trail led him back to the base of Mount Tretus, to the infamous cave with its two dark, yawning entrances. He stood before it, studying the geography. This architectural quirk of nature had been the lion's greatest defense, allowing it to escape any trap. But to a mind like Hercules, it presented a new possibility. What if you could turn a creature's greatest advantage into its prison? The strategy shifted completely. He would no longer fight the lion on the open plain where it had every advantage of speed and terror. He would force it into a confined space, a place where its size and power would become a liability. With immense effort, he began rolling and lifting massive boulders, stones that would take a team of oxen to move. He stacked them one upon another, completely sealing the larger of the two cave mouths. The sound of rock grinding against rock echoed through the hillside. The lion's primary escape route was now a solid wall of stone. Hercules then turned to the remaining entrance, the smaller of the two. He did not block this one. Instead, he took a deep breath and stepped inside, leaving his useless bow and his shattered club outside in the daylight. He was now entering the beast's own home, armed with nothing but his hands, his strength, and a desperate, cunning plan. The darkness of the cave swallowed him, the air thick with the musky scent of the predator. Outside, the world was open and free. Inside, it was a closed arena, a brutal, intimate chamber where only one of them would walk back out. The lion, sensing the vibration of the sealed entrance and the presence in its den, would have nowhere to run. The final confrontation would be a raw, primal struggle, a test of grip and chokehold against claw and fang, with no room for error and no weapon but the body itself. Inside the cave, the world shrank to the space between two bodies. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and the musky scent of the predator. Light from the single entrance cut a sharp, dusty beam across the floor, illuminating motes dancing in the chaos about to unfold. The lion was a shadow within a shadow, its eyes glowing like molten coins in the dark. There was no strategy left, no clever tool. This was the oldest contest, stripped bare, strength against strength. Hercules lunged, not with a weapon, but with his arms. He threw himself onto the lion's back, his powerful legs locking around its torso, his hands seeking purchase on the impossible golden fur. The beast roared, a sound so loud it vibrated in Hercules' bones and exploded into a frenzy of motion. It bucked and twisted, slamming its immense weight against the cave walls, trying to crush the man clinging to it like a second skin. Stone dust rained down from the ceiling with each impact, filling the air with a choking haze. Claws, each as long as a dagger, scraped against Hercules' bronze-studded leather armor, seeking the flesh beneath. The lion's head snapped around, jaws powerful enough to crush a bull's skull gnashing inches from the hero's face. Hercules held on, his muscles screaming, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He was not trying to punch or stab. He was wrestling a force of nature. He shifted his grip, one arm sliding under the lion's throat, the other locking over the top. He began to squeeze, applying pressure not to the invulnerable hide, but to the airway and blood vessels beneath it. This was a battle of endurance now, a grim, slow contest of will. The lion thrashed, its roars becoming choked, desperate gurgles. It scratched and tore at the ground, its hind legs digging deep furrows in the earth floor. But Hercules, fueled by divine strength and a desperate need for redemption, did not let go. He tightened his hold, his face a mask of strain, every tendon in his body standing out like corded rope. For what felt like an eternity, the two titans struggled in that dusty, dim arena, a primal sculpture of conflict. Slowly, inevitably, the lion's struggles weakened. The furious kicks became feeble twitches. The gurgling roars faded into silence. The golden body, once taut with terrifying power, went limp in the hero's arms. In the sudden quiet, broken only by Hercules' own heaving breaths, the impossible had been done. The invulnerable beast was defeated, not by a blade, but by the relentless, crushing force of a mortal embrace. He had solved the puzzle by abandoning the idea of piercing it and simply overpowering the life within. The struggle in the dark cave reached its grim, inevitable conclusion. With the lion's body finally still, Hercules did not release his hold for a long, tense moment. The beast was defeated, but the task given by King Eurystheus was not yet complete. He had been commanded to bring back the lion's skin, and here the hero faced a second, equally maddening puzzle. How do you skin a creature whose hide cannot be cut? Every knife and blade in his possession had already proven useless against that golden pelt in combat. It seemed the lion's final revenge would be to deny the hero his proof of victory, its invulnerability persisting even in death. Frustrated, Hercules sat at the cave entrance, the massive body beside him, and considered the problem. The solution, according to the legends, came from a moment of divine inspiration or perhaps simple, brilliant observation. He looked at the lion's own claws, still extended from its massive paws. These were not tools made by human hands. They were a part of the beast itself, grown from the same magical essence that fortified its hide. The logic was impeccable. If nothing from the outside world could pierce the skin, perhaps the only thing that could was a part of the creature from the inside world. Using his immense strength, Hercules is said to have worked one of the lion's own claws free and used its supernatural sharpness to slice through the golden fur from the underside. It was the perfect, ironic key. The monster's greatest defense was undone by its own body. This detail is far more than a clever hunting tip. It completes the profound lesson of the Nemean Lion. The beast represented an absolute external challenge. Its hide made it untouchable by conventional means, forcing Hercules to abandon every tool and tactic he knew. The victory required a brutal, intimate, and unconventional application of his raw power, wrestling it to submission. But even then, the challenge was not fully overcome until he engaged with the problem on its own terms, using the lion's inherent nature against itself. The claw was a symbol of turning an enemy's strength into a weakness. The entire labor teaches that some obstacles cannot be faced head-on with the tools you expect to use. You must be willing to enter the darkness, to grapple directly, and to sometimes use the logic of the obstacle itself to dismantle it. Hercules emerged from that cave not just with a trophy, but with a transformed understanding of what true strength required. He had learned to think like the monster to defeat it, and he now held the ultimate prize, a cloak of golden fur that would become his most iconic attribute, a suit of armor no weapon could ever pierce. But the struggle in the cave was only the first half of the labor. Hercules now faced a second, equally maddening problem. He stood over the magnificent fallen beast with a command to fulfill to bring its skin back to King Eurystheus as proof. Yet the very quality that made the lion legendary now made this simple task seem impossible. How do you skin a creature whose hide cannot be cut? Every knife in his possession, every blade of bronze or iron, was useless. They would skate across that golden pelt without leaving a mark, just as the arrows had done. The lion's invulnerability was a curse that extended even into its death, threatening to deny the hero his hard-won trophy. It was a final, stubborn defiance. Hercules could have returned to Typhon and simply told the king the beast was dead. But that would not satisfy the exact wording of the labor, and it would give the cowardly Eurystheus an excuse to deny the task was complete. The skin was the required evidence. So the hero sat at the mouth of the cave, the massive body beside him, and he thought. The solution, when it came, was a stroke of brilliant, poetic justice. According to the most famous versions of the myth, Hercules realized that if no tool from the outside world could pierce the hide, the only thing that could was a part of the lion from its own world. He looked at the beast's massive paws. There, extending from the toes, were claws as long as daggers and just as sharp. These were not manufactured weapons. They were grown from the lion's own essence, a part of the same magical nature that fortified its fur. The logic was perfect. The only thing capable of cutting the Nemean lion's skin was the Nemean lion itself. Using his immense strength, Hercules is said to have carefully worked one of these great claws free. Then, turning it in his hand, he used the lion's own supernatural claw to slice through the golden pelt from the softer underside. It was a slow, meticulous process, but it worked. The claw slid through the hide where every human-made blade had failed. This detail is far more than a clever hunting tip. It completes the profound lesson of the entire ordeal. The lion represented an absolute, external challenge. To defeat its living form, Hercules had to abandon conventional weapons and use raw, grappling strength. But to fully claim his victory, he had to engage with the problem on its own magical terms. He had to use the monster's inherent nature against itself. The claw is a powerful symbol of turning an enemy's greatest strength into the very tool for its undoing. It teaches that some obstacles are puzzles with their own unique keys, and solving them requires understanding the obstacle's own rules. Finally, the job was done. Hercules peeled the magnificent golden pelt from the lion's body. He then cleaned it and fashioned it into a cloak, draping the heavy, shimmering fur over his broad shoulders. The head of the lion became a terrifying hood. This was not just a trophy, it was the ultimate prize. He now wore a suit of armor no weapon could ever pierce, a constant reminder of his first and perhaps most instructive labor. The invulnerable beast was gone, but its power would walk with Hercules for the rest of his days. The golden pelt was no longer a beast's hide, it was a hero's banner. Hercules made a deliberate choice after that brutal struggle in the cave. He did not simply carry the skin back as a grisly proof of completion. He cleaned it, treated it, and fashioned it into a functional cloak, with the lion's own massive skull and jaw serving as a formidable hood over his head. This act of transformation was deeply symbolic. He was taking the very essence of the challenge he had overcome and making it a part of himself. It ceased to be a trophy and became an attribute, the single most iconic piece of his identity for the rest of his legendary life. Imagine the sight of him walking into a village or approaching a king's court. Before he even spoke his name, the message was clear. Here was the man who had strangled the invulnerable. The skin was a walking story, a testament written in golden fur. Practically, it was the greatest armor in the world. No smith could forge a bare breastplate of bronze or a shield of oxhide that compared to the Nemean Lion's own magical hide. Swords would still glance off it. Arrows would still fall away. By wearing it, Hercules permanently carried the solution to that first impossible labor with him, turning the monster's greatest defense into his own ultimate protection. It was armor gifted not by a god, but earned through sheer grit and cunning, which made it all the more powerful. But beyond protection, it served as a psychological weapon and a universal symbol. The lion's head hood, with its frozen snarl and empty eyes, framed Hercules' own face with an aura of primal, terrifying power. It announced his identity and his capability to any who saw him, friend or foe. Bandits would think twice. Lesser monsters might flee. Kings like Eurystheus would feel a fresh chill of fear, seeing the living proof of their failed trap now draped across the hero's shoulders. It became more than clothing, it was a heraldic emblem, and standard of heroic might that needed no words. Wherever Hercules went, the Nemean Lion went with him, not as a threat, but as a conquered shadow, a constant reminder that even the most insurmountable walls could be scaled, or in this case, worn. The journey back to Tyrants was not just a return, it was a transformation in motion. Hercules walked the roads not as a penitent servant, but as a figure from a nightmare made real. The golden pelt swung from his shoulders, catching the sun, and the lion's hollow skull stared blankly ahead from his head. He arrived at the gates of the city and strode directly toward the palace, his new cloak announcing his victory to every wide-eyed citizen who scrambled out of his path. Word traveled faster than he did, a ripple of awe and terror preceding him into the throne room. King Eurystheus was awaiting news, likely expecting a messenger bearing a sad report of failure, or perhaps just the hero's absence forever. What he got was the embodiment of his own worst fears, walking through the door. The sight that greeted the king was not a man carrying a trophy. From his distant, elevated throne, all Eurystheus could see was the unmistakable, massive form of the Nemean Lion itself, moving with purpose, its golden head held high. In that heart-stopping moment, the king's petty mind could only process one reality. The monster had not been killed, it had been tamed, and now it had come for him. He let out a shriek of pure, undignified terror. Historians say he scrambled from his throne so frantically he might have tripped over his own robes. He did not look for a weapon, he looked for a hiding place. In a panic, he dove into a giant bronze storage jar that was kept in the corner of the room for storing grain or oil, pulling the heavy lid down over himself, his royal authority completely forgotten in the face of primal fear. It was a moment of high comedy and profound symbolic collapse. The king who had set an impossible task was now cowering in a pot, hiding from the very proof of its completion. Hercules had to call out, to announce himself, to explain that the beast was dead and he was merely wearing its skin. Slowly, shakily, Eurystheus peeked out from his jar, his face pale with humiliation and lingering dread. The experience scarred him permanently. From that day forward, the king issued a new decree. Hercules was never to enter the city walls of Tyrans again. All future labors would be announced from a distance, through a herald. The proofs of his victories would be displayed outside the gates. Eurystheus, in his cowardice, had effectively banished the solution to the problems he himself created, unable to bear the sight of the man who kept solving them. This was not just a logistical change, it was a perfect metaphor for the rest of the labors. The hero would operate out in the wild, facing cosmic chaos, while the king who commanded him remained safe behind walls, insulated from the very power and truth he had unleashed. Yet the story of the lion's birth holds another, more haunting possibility. While the terrifying lineage of Typhon and Echidna is the most famous, ancient mythology often speaks in more than one voice. Another thread of the legend, woven by poets like Hesiod, suggests a far more celestial and tragic origin. In this version, the Nemean Lion was not born from monsters of the deep earth, but from the cold, silver light of the moon itself. It was said to be the offspring of the moon goddess Selene, cast down from the heavens to walk the earth as a living terror. This is a profound shift in the creature's identity. Instead of being a primal force of chaos, it becomes something else entirely, a fallen, celestial being. Think of the symbolism here. The moon is distant, beautiful, cyclical, a symbol of cool light and measured time. For a child of Selene to become a ravaging, golden-furred beast of perpetual hunger twists that celestial heritage into something deeply wrong. It suggests a curse, a terrible transformation, or perhaps a divine punishment gone awry. This alternative origin adds layers of melancholy and cosmic scale to the beast's nature. It was not just born terrible, it was made terrible, plummeting from the realm of gods and stars into the dust of Nemea. Its invulnerable hide could then be seen not as a monster's birthright, but as a remnant of its divine origin, a piece of the unblemished moon that no earthly weapon could mar. This framing turns the lion from a simple obstacle into a tragic figure, a piece of the cosmos out of place, wreaking havoc not because it chose to, but because it was cast down and could be nothing else. It makes Hercules' labor not just the subduing of a monster, but almost an act of cosmic correction, putting a piece of the fractured sky to rest. Which story feels more true to you? Does the lion's terror come from the chaos of the earth, or the fractured light of the heavens? That golden pelt was not the only legacy the lion left behind. Its story did not end on the dusty plains of Nemea or in the throne room of a terrified king. It ascended, literally, into the realm of legend. In a final cosmic twist, the Nemean Lion was granted immortality, not as a monster, but as a constellation. After its death, the great cat was said to have been lifted into the night sky by Zeus himself, placed among the eternal stars as the constellation Dawa Leo. Think about that for a moment. The ultimate predator, a creature of earthly terror, was transformed into a permanent fixture of the heavens. This act of catasterism, the placing of a figure among the stars, is one of the highest honors in Greek mythology. But why would Zeus do this? The reasons are layered with meaning. One interpretation is that it was a direct honor for Hercules, his son. By immortalizing the hero's first and greatest foe, Zeus was permanently etching the triumph into the cosmos, a celestial monument to Hercules' strength and cunning that would shine for all time. Every time Hercules or anyone else looked up, they would see the proof of his labor glowing overhead. Yet another version of the myth suggests it was Hera, the goddess who hated Hercules, who placed the lion in the sky. In this reading, it was not an honor, but a reminder. It was Hera's way of ensuring that the beast her nemesis had killed would forever look down upon him, a constant, gleaming symbol of the trials she would continue to send his way. Even in victory, Hercules could not escape her gaze or the shadow of his first labor. Regardless of who placed it there, the constellation Leo became a permanent part of human storytelling. Located along the ecliptic, the sun's apparent path across the sky, Leo is one of the 12 classic constellations of the zodiac. Its brightest star, Regulus, meaning little king or prince, marks the lion's heart. To ancient stargazers, the pattern roughly outlined the shape of a crouching lion with the sickle-shaped asterism, of stars forming its head and mane, and other stars tracing its body and tail. For cultures around the Mediterranean and beyond, this starry lion came to symbolize royalty, courage, and the fierce heat of the summer sun, which passes through Leo in August. So the Nemean Lion's journey is complete, from a terror on the ground to a king in the cosmos. Its invulnerable hide is gone, but its image is forever fixed in the one tapestry nothing can tear, the night sky itself. It serves as an eternal reminder that our greatest struggles, once overcome, can become the stories by which we navigate our world and even our universe. The lion's story did not fade with its ascent to the stars, but instead took root in the very earth where it once roamed. The plains of Nemea, once a place of terror, were transformed into a sacred site of celebration and human excellence. This was the birthplace of the Nemean Games, one of the 4 great Pan-Hellenic athletic festivals of ancient Greece, standing alongside the Olympic, Pythian, and Isthmian Games. Their origin is directly tied to the myth, though ancient sources offer 2 beautiful, intertwined explanations. The first holds that the games were founded by Hercules himself, as a funeral celebration in honor of a young hero named Opheltes, who tragically died from a serpent bite during the expedition against the lion. The second states they were established by the 7 against Thebes, heroes who stopped in Nemea on their way to war, and held the first competitions to honor the infant Opheltes. In both versions, the shadow of the Nemean lion looms large, as the games commemorated those who passed through its haunted domain. Held every 2 years, with a schedule offset from the Olympics, the Nemean Games were a major unifying event for the Greek world. Athletes from every city-state would converge, not just to compete in foot races, wrestling, boxing, and chariot racing, but also in musical and poetic contests. During the Games, sacred truce was declared across Greece, halting all conflicts so that travel and competition could proceed in peace. The victor's prize was simple yet profoundly symbolic, a crown woven from fresh wild celery, a plant that symbolized mourning and eternal remembrance. So the legacy of the beast was inverted, from an agent of death and isolation to a catalyst for life, unity, and cultural achievement. The myth of the invulnerable lion gave rise to a real-world institution that celebrated the vulnerable human body pushed to its absolute limits and the enduring power of shared story. The terror was gone, replaced by the collective breath of runners, the strain of wrestlers, and the applause for poets, all echoing in the same valley where a golden monster's roar once silenced everything. But a monster is never just a monster, especially when it has siblings. While the Nemean lion was a creature of singular, brutal purpose, its more famous sibling, the Chimera, was a creature of chaotic, terrifying imagination. Picture them side by side. The lion is a masterpiece of focused terror, a mountain of muscle and golden fur, its threat defined by one simple, impossible fact: nothing can pierce its hide. Its challenge is pure, a wall of invulnerability you must find a way around or over. The Chimera, born from the same parents, is the opposite. It is not one thing, but a grotesque amalgamation of three: the body and head of a lion, a goat's head rising from its back, and a serpent for a tail. It does not just possess physical might, it breathes gouts of searing fire. Where the lion represents a brute force problem, the Chimera is a multi-layered magical crisis. Its very form is a violation of natural order, a living symbol of confusion and hybrid terror. Ancient writers like Homer described it as a thing of divine, not earthly, linking it directly to the volatile landscape of Lycia, a region known for its fiery volcanic vents. The Chimera wasn't just a monster, it was a mythic explanation for the Earth's own destructive breath, where flames spewed from the ground as if from a beast's maw. So what does this sibling rivalry tell us about ancient ideas of monstrosity? Their shared lineage from Typhon and Echidna shows that the Greeks saw terrifying forces in two distinct categories. One was the absolute, overwhelming force of nature itself, embodied by the Nemean Lion, an obstacle that simply cannot be moved by conventional means. The other was the chaotic, unnatural blending of elements, embodied by the Chimera, a symbol of the world gone wrong, where categories blur and fire erupts from living flesh. One sibling tests raw power and persistence, the other tests a hero's ability to confront a surreal and multifaceted nightmare. To defeat Bellerophon, the hero who faced the Chimera, required not just strength, but the aid of the winged horse Pegasus, a solution as airborne and miraculous as the problem was earthbound and grotesque. These two children of chaos bookend the spectrum of heroic trials, from the crushing grip required for the lion to the elevated strategic strike needed for the fiery hybrid. Together, they prove that from a single source of terror, infinite forms of challenge can be born. The struggle was not confined to the plains or the stars, it was painted and carved into the very fabric of ancient life. For the Greeks, the myth of the Nemean Lion was not just a story to tell, but a scene to see, a powerful visual narrative repeated on everything from humble drinking cups to the grandest temples. Artists faced a unique challenge. How do you depict a creature whose most famous feature was something you could not show? Its invulnerability. They solved this brilliantly through composition and raw physicality. On countless vases, painted in bold black and terracotta red, we see the moment of intimate, brutal conflict. Hercules and the lion are often locked in a tight, symmetrical embrace, their bodies forming a tense, almost circular shape. The hero's muscles are taut, veins straining, his face a mask of focused effort as he applies the fatal chokehold. The lion, in turn, is all coiled power, its claws desperately raking at Hercules' legs, its mouth open in a silent ceramic roar. The artists masterfully conveyed the beast's immense size by showing it dwarfing the hero, its bulk dominating the scene, making Hercules' eventual victory seem all the more incredible. They told the story of the impenetrable hide not by painting it as shiny metal, but by showing the useless weapons scattered around the figures, broken swords and bent arrows lying forgotten at their feet. In later scenes, after the victory, we see Hercules as a walking symbol. He stands calmly, often receiving wine from Athena or being crowned by Nike, the goddess of victory, while wearing the lion's skin. The pelt drapes around him, the paws tied at his chest, and the gaping head hood frames his own, a visual shorthand that immediately identified him and proclaimed his greatest feat. This iconography was so potent, it became his permanent uniform in art. This visual story was not just for private contemplation, it was for public veneration. The myth was carved in stone on the sacred architecture of Greece. Look up at the metopes, the rectangular stone panels that often ran around the exterior of temples like the Temple of Zeus at Olympia, and you would find the labors of Hercules prominently displayed. Here, in high relief, the wrestling match is frozen for eternity. The depth of the carving allows the sculptor to show the sheer mass of the lion, the way its weight presses into Hercules, and the incredible tension in the hero's arms as he strains to subdue it. These were not mere decorations, they were public lessons in stone. For a citizen approaching the temple, these images reinforce the core values of the culture, the triumph of civilization, represented by the hero, over the chaotic wild, represented by the monster. The popularity of this scene across centuries and mediums tells us something profound. The Greeks were endlessly fascinated by this specific moment of struggle, the pivot point where human ingenuity and endurance met an unstoppable force. It was the ultimate underdog story, made visible. By repeatedly depicting it, they were not just honoring Hercules, they were reminding themselves of the very essence of heroic effort, a struggle that was always physical, often terrifying, and ultimately defined by a refusal to let go. The lion's symbolic power was a language spoken across the ancient world. While the Nemean lion stands as the ultimate test, its form echoed in countless other tales, revealing how deeply this creature was woven into the fabric of myth as an emblem of sovereignty and raw danger. Consider the mighty lions that drew the chariot of Cybele, the great mother goddess of Phrygia. These were not monsters to be slain, but majestic, untamed forces harnessed to divine purpose. Their presence beside the goddess communicated a profound message that true, fertile power could command even the king of beasts. The lion here was not an enemy of order, but a testament to its supreme authority. In a more localized Greek tale, the lion of Mount Cithaeron presented a more familiar, yet still potent, threat. This beast ravaged the herds around Megara until a hero named Alcathos, seeking to win the king's daughter, hunted and killed it. His victory was so celebrated that it became part of the city's foundation myth, with the lion's defeat symbolizing the taming of the wilderness to establish civilized order. The story mirrors Hercules' labor in miniature, a hero proving his worth by overcoming the primal predator to secure his place in society. Perhaps the most poignant and influential of these other lion stories is the one that tragically entwines the lovers Pyramus and Thisbe. In Ovid's telling, the lion does not hunt the lovers deliberately, but simply arrives at their secret meeting place, its jaws bloody from a recent kill. When Thisbe flees, dropping her cloak, the beast mauls the garment. Pyramus later finds the torn, bloodied cloak and, believing his love dead, takes his own life. Here, the lion is an agent of blind, accidental fate. It is not a symbol of royal power, but of the brutal, indifferent chaos that can shatter human plans and hearts. Its role is purely destructive, a random encounter that sparks irreversible tragedy, showing the lion as an embodiment of sudden, senseless misfortune. From divine companion to civic founder's foe to an instrument of cruel chance, the lion in mythology wears many faces, yet each one reinforces its core nature, an overwhelming force that heroes must conquer, gods must master, and humans must fear. The Nemean lion sits at the pinnacle of this symbolic hierarchy, its golden hide making it the purest, most absolute expression of the challenge every other lion represented. That golden metaphor did not stay locked in the ancient world. The term Nemean lion has prowled its way into modern language, a powerful shorthand for a challenge that seems utterly impervious to conventional solutions. When a critic calls a new piece of military technology a Nemean lion of the battlefield, they are not talking about its ferocity, but its perceived invulnerability, a system that appears to shrug off every known countermeasure. In sports commentary, a legendary, seemingly unbeatable defense might be dubbed a Nemean lion backline, a wall that no offensive strategy can seem to penetrate. This usage captures the essence of the myth, transforming the beast from a creature of flesh and blood into a conceptual framework for any obstacle defined by its absolute defense. It is no longer about a lion, but about the nature of the problem itself, one that demands we, like Hercules, must change our entire approach. We must stop looking for a sharper spear and start looking for the olive wood, club, the unexpected angle, or the internal flaw we can leverage. The metaphor thrives because it is so perfectly scalable, from personal struggles to global crises. An individual battling a chronic illness might privately see it as their own Nemean Lion, an invulnerable foe within their own body. On a larger scale, a seemingly intractable social or political issue, resistant to every policy and protest, earns the same label, framing it as a monolithic challenge that requires a fundamental rethink. The myth gives us a story to understand our own frustrations, a narrative arc that promises a path to victory lies not in repeating failed attempts, but in the courage to grapple with the problem directly, on a level no one else has tried. It turns despair into a puzzle waiting for a clever, unconventional solution. From the silent stars, the lion's roar now echoes through our screens. The Nemean Lion's journey from ancient myth to modern pop culture is a testament to its enduring power as a symbol of the ultimate challenge. In film, its most famous modern incarnation is perhaps in Disney's animated classic, Hercules. Here, the lion is reimagined with a sleek, stylized menace, its golden fur gleaming as it battles the young, still-learning hero in a rocky gorge. The film cleverly adapts its key trait, invulnerability, by having Hercules' initial attacks prove completely futile, his sword clanging off the beast's hide. The solution, while simplified for a younger audience, stays true to the myth's core. Hercules must use his wits and raw strength to overcome it, ultimately using the lion's own power against it. A more direct, live-action portrayal came from the television series Hercules, The Legendary Journeys. In this version, the confrontation is a gritty, physical struggle that emphasizes the hero's desperation and the beast's overwhelming power, bringing the cave wrestling match vividly to life for a generation of viewers. These adaptations translate the myth's tension into visual spectacle, ensuring the lion remains a recognizable pillar of the Hercules legend. But it is in the interactive realm of video games where the Nemean Lion truly finds a new hunting ground, evolving from a story element into a direct, tactile test of the player's own skill. In the brutal world of the God of War series, the lion appears as a fearsome, often optional, boss monster. Game developers leverage its mythic invulnerability to create unique battle mechanics. You cannot simply hack at it with your blades. They will deflect. Instead, you must solve the combat puzzle, perhaps using the environment, magical attacks, or finding a specific sequence of actions to stun it before you can land a telling blow. This forces the player to think like Hercules, abandoning conventional attacks for a more cunning strategy. Similarly, in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which immerses players in the Peloponnesian War, the Nemean Lion appears as one of the many mythical beasts the protagonist can hunt. It is a high-level encounter, often found in a cave, that requires careful preparation, upgraded gear, and mastery of the game's dodge and parry systems. Its design is typically magnificent and terrifying, a towering creature whose health bar barely moves under normal assaults. Defeating it often yields the ultimate prize, a piece of legendary armor or a weapon mirroring Hercules claiming the pelt. These game interpretations are fascinating because they make the player personally experience the myth's central dilemma. You're not watching Hercules struggle. You're the one facing the impenetrable hide, feeling the frustration of your attacks bouncing off and the triumph of finally discovering the solution. The lion becomes a benchmark, a rite of passage that separates casual players from dedicated heroes. In every pixel and polygon, the ancient lesson holds true. Some foes cannot be defeated by force alone. They demand adaptation, patience, and a willingness to engage the puzzle on its own impossible terms. Could the impossible hide of the Nemean lion ever step from myth into reality? While we know it as a magical creation, it's fascinating to view its legendary defense through the lens of what nature and science can achieve. The lion's pelt was described as a single, seamless material tougher than any forged metal, flexible enough to move with the beast, yet utterly impervious to penetration. Today, material scientists dream of such a substance, a perfect blend of hardness, flexibility, and lightweight design. We might look to nature's own prototypes for clues. An armadillo's bony plates, called osteoderms, are made of bone and keratin and offer remarkable protection, yet they are segmented to allow for movement. A pangolin's scales are made of keratin, the same protein as our fingernails, but arranged in an overlapping armor-like pattern that can deflect bites. These are brilliant adaptations, but they are not impenetrable. Modern science pushes further with materials like graphene, a single layer of carbon atoms arranged in a hexagonal lattice that is incredibly strong and light. Layered composites used in body armor combine ceramics and synthetic fibers to disperse impact energy. Yet, no human-made material yet achieves the mythic combination of the Nemean lion's hide. A singular, flexible surface that is both harder than any weapon and immune to fatigue or fracture. The true magic of the myth lies in that seamless, holistic perfection. It represents a defense with no weak points, no seams, no compromise between mobility and protection. So, in a purely physical sense, such a creature remains a fantasy, but the pursuit of that fantasy drives innovation. The legend challenges us to ask, what would it take? Perhaps a genetically engineered biological material, a skin that grows its own diamond-like carbon matrix in a living mesh, or a nanoscale weave that redirects force at the molecular level. The Nemean lion in this light becomes less a monster and more a millennia-old blueprint, a symbol of our enduring desire to conquer the limits of protection itself. Perhaps the deepest truth of this myth is not about monsters at all, but about the human mind. The Nemean lion's most terrifying feature, that golden, unbreakable hide, may be the most profound metaphor ever woven into its story. Think about it. What is it that we describe as feeling impenetrable? Our deepest fears, our most stubborn traumas, our private shames. These are the inner beasts that no logical argument can pierce, no quick fix can wound. They roar in the dark caves of our memory, and they feel just as invulnerable, just as impossible to defeat as that lion on the plains of Nemea. When we try to attack them head-on with simple willpower, the equivalent of hurling a spear, we often find our efforts shattering against an unseen, resilient defense. The myth, in this light, becomes a masterclass in psychological strategy. Hercules' initial failure with weapons teaches a vital lesson. Some inner struggles cannot be solved by direct, logical assault. You cannot simply argue your fear away. You cannot reason with a deep-seated grief. These are not puzzles for the intellect alone. They are forces that must be engaged on a more primal, intimate level. This is where the wrestling match in the cave becomes so powerfully symbolic. Hercules enters the darkness, the confined space of the problem itself, and he grapples with it directly. He does not fight it from a safe distance. He gets close. He feels its weight, its heat, its desperate struggle. He uses his own body, his endurance, his sheer refusal to let go. This is the raw courage of facing your trauma, of sitting with your fear, of holding on through the panic until its strength finally ebbs. It is messy, exhausting, and profoundly personal work. And then there is the final, brilliant twist, using the lion's own claw to skin it. Psychologically, this represents the ultimate act of integration. It means using the energy of the problem itself to dismantle it. Perhaps a past failure becomes the source of your resilience. Maybe a deep insecurity, once understood, becomes the wellspring of your empathy. You turn the very substance of your wound into the tool for your healing. The golden pelt Hercules wears afterward is the transformed self, the armor of hard-won wisdom. You carry the proof of the struggle with you, not as an open wound, but as a source of strength. The monster is gone, but its essence is now a part of you, reshaped into protection. So the next time you face your own seemingly invulnerable challenge, ask not for a sharper weapon, but for the courage to enter the cave, to grapple in the dark, and to find the unique key hidden within the beast itself. The placement of this labor was no accident. Why begin with the Nemean Lion? Its role as the first task is a masterstroke of mythological storytelling, establishing the entire framework for Hercules' epic journey of redemption. This initial confrontation does far more than showcase strength. It sets the thematic scale, the required mindset, and the ultimate destination for everything that follows. First, it establishes the sheer magnitude of the challenges. Eurystheus did not send Hercules to capture a wild boar or scare off some bandits. He sent him against a creature of divine lineage, a sibling to the greatest monsters whose very existence defied the laws of nature. By starting here, the myth declares that the path to atonement is not a gentle walk, but a climb up a mountain of the impossible. It tells the audience, and Hercules himself, that these labors will not be chores, they will be encounters with the foundational chaos of the world itself. This scale is crucial, for only a trial of this immensity could begin to balance the horrific weight of the crime he committed. Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, this labor introduces the indispensable theme of cunning, complementing raw power. Hercules could not simply overpower the lion through brute force alone. His initial assault with the club and arrows failed spectacularly, teaching him a harsh, immediate lesson. The solution required a shift in thinking, from hunter to strategist, from warrior to wrestler. He had to study the beast, understand its lair, and turn its own home into a trap. He had to abandon every conventional tool and rely on his wits as much as his muscles. This pattern of mental engagement becomes the blueprint for the labors to come. Whether cleaning the Augean stables by redirecting rivers or capturing the Cretan bull with ropes and guile, Hercules repeatedly proves that brain and brawn are a partnership. The Nemean Lion establishes this rule from the very start, making it clear that redemption is an intellectual journey as much as a physical one. Finally, and most symbolically, this first labor represents the hero's initial concrete step in mastering the chaotic, monstrous world. By strangling the lion and claiming its pelt, Hercules does more than kill a beast. He takes a piece of that primordial chaos and makes it his own. He transforms a symbol of untamed, invulnerable terror into a tool of protection and identity. This act is a microcosm of his entire quest. Each labor that follows is another piece of the wild, disordered world being subdued, ordered, and integrated into the realm of human and heroic achievement. The lion, born from Typhon and Echidna, is chaos in its purest, most defensive form. Overcoming it is the first essential move in a long campaign to bring order out of that chaos. This mastery is his path to redemption, but it is also the path to apotheosis, to becoming more than a man. By systematically facing and defeating these children of the primordial giants, Hercules is not just serving a king, he is completing the work of the gods themselves, securing the cosmic order. The golden pelt he wears forever after is the badge of this new identity, a man who has stared into the heart of the wild and emerged not just victorious, but fundamentally changed. The first labor, therefore, is the seed from which the entire heroic tree grows, defining the height of the challenges, the nature of the struggle, and the glorious, star-bound end of the road. Its journey spanned from the monstrous womb of chaos to the cold, eternal fire of the stars. The Nemean Lion roared its way into legend as the sibling of horrors, a golden terror whose hide mocked every weapon, a force that broke the spirit of an entire land. It met its end not by blade or arrow, but in the silent, crushing darkness of its own cave, defeated by a hero who learned that some walls must be climbed with bare hands. Its pelt became a hero's skin, its image a constellation, and its story a cornerstone of myth. This beast was more than a monster. It was Hercules' defining first trial, the crucible that forged his method for every impossible task to come. Stands forever as a symbol of the ultimate challenge, the kind that seems to have no weakness, no entry point, no conventional solution. It asks of us the same question it asked of Hercules. What do you do when the way forward is blocked by something that cannot be pierced? The answer lies not in finding a better spear, but in discovering a different kind of strength within yourself. So we leave you with this thought. In your own life, what form does your Nemean Lion take? Is it a personal hurdle that feels insurmountable? A problem at work that defies every standard fix? Or a dream that seems locked behind a door with no key? Remember the lesson of the cave. The solution may not lie in fighting the obstacle on its own terms, but in changing the terms of the fight entirely. It might require the raw, enduring grip of patience, the clever twist of a new perspective, or the courage to use a piece of the problem itself as your tool. Your unconventional strength is waiting to be found. What will it be? Let us know in the comments below what your ultimate challenge looks like and what hidden strengths you might use to face it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the saga of the Nemean Lion and want to explore more myths that test the limits of heroes, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more journeys into the heart of ancient legend.